Do we have a plan, Dr. Holden?
It appears we do.
You will end the charade.
Last I looked, your new job came with that check my husband wrote.
Mrs. Masters?
Dear God.
It seems impossible for the staff to think any less of me.
It may not be possible for you to come over to Memorial.
My name is on that study. I helped to develop it with you.
Why did you sleep with Ethan? I see clearly you'll do anything to get what you want.
Masters of Sex, everybody. Episode 2, Season 2. Welcome to What the Flick. Ben, William, Alonso didn't introduce anybody in our previous episode of The Strain. You'll have to figure it out yourself.
We are the masters of sex.
We are, right. I mean, look at it. Look at
You're
it.
welcome.
I mean, how badly do we need a girl for this?
It feels wrong.
Yeah,
This is ironic.
I feel like the bad guys on this show, like we're all sitting around, we should be smoking and, you know.
Well, let's start. What's the name of this episode?
Kyrie Eleison, which is Lord Have Mercy.
Which has limited...
I'm not entirely sure what that means, but I'm sure it meant something.
So in episode 1 of season 2, we had that really nice moment where finally a doctor wants to talk to Ginny for a valid reason because he wants a researcher and he wants to meet Ulysses, the super dildo. And then it turns out
he jizzes in his pants.
No, just from talking.
Yeah.
Do you think he intended to get that kind of conversation out of it, or that just sort of happened?
I think you don't get that kind of conversation unless you intend to.
Yeah. I'm just thinking from the beginning.
Like you might find yourself, I'm too aroused by this, and so you go, okay, now the esophagus. You know,
He clearly was not. There was some point there was a point of no return. He was not going.
Yeah, right.
I feel like that's the strangest moment in the show overall, though, because not only is that just a bizarre, strange, sad scene for her, it's intercut with Danny Houston's epic anal sex monologue.
Yeah,
well, because again, I think the whole point of that montage is the idea of like the Masters and Johnson are about the science and they're about the trying
the work.
The work on the show. It's always the work, and everybody else is like,
right.
You know.
Danny Houston wants to talk about positions, right?
Yeah.
And and then sort of what does he say about
the Greek way?
Right, the Greek way, and then he says
when
olive oil isn't just for cooking.
Oh, and there's something about the once you've got the bird in your hand,
you don't even bother with the bush.
Like, stop it.
You really need a girl.
But then you see that like that's the whole reason he brought him over.
Of course, that was clear from the beginning. Like, you're a sex study. I find that fascinating, and it's like, I want to sell tickets, basically.
And I want to sell tickets, and I want to do hysterectomies to the daughters of big donors.
God.
Yeah,
that reminded me of. Remember the movie Rambling Rose?
Not yet.
With Laura Dern, 90s movie.
Yeah, okay, maybe.
Anyway, she played that kind of character who was sort of sexually freewheeling, and they I think forced her to be sterilized.
Yeah, right.
It just reminded me of that's what they do back then,
Because they hadn't really figured out psychology yet.
But why? I was frustrated by the fact that Michael Sheen never said to her, look, this won't curb desire. This isn't like...
Well, but maybe he didn't know that. Remember,
they're
part of what this whole show is that
this.
they're learning all this stuff. So maybe he didn't know.
The very notion that maybe being sexually promiscuous isn't a morally horrible thing is still fresh and new at this thing.
Yeah.
Just even saying that he's being a rebel.
No, he was, I get it. He was,
and no one's asking questions of how does this kid become so sexualized at an early age? Dad, like that.
Right.
There's probably, heaven knows what's going on in that backstory that's not being investigated.
She
because
gets up
we
to
wanted
leave
talk
the,
about it,
she gets up to leave the table and he just hits his glass, right? Didn't he? It was like ding ding, like nope. Right, you sit back down.
Kind of want to cut this episode into Lars von Trier's Nymphomaniac. And just like have her exit the film, just like because a lot of it is about sexualization at a young age. It isn't necessarily based on sexual abuse or misconduct. It can just be a predilection.
Sure.
Why would it have to be that? Then again, it might. Looks like a really terrible family from that first scene. So who knows? I'm not.
What secrets are being kept?
But I mean, I don't know how completely realistic she is. But I mean, each week your sort of love of Betty just becomes greater and greater.
Do we think the Pretzel King is going to get wised up at some point? How's this going to go?
You would like, of course, what you'd like, because he seems like the kind of guy who would do it, that ultimately he'll be like, well, I love you. We'll adopt.
Yeah.
But this is how we're going to do it.
Well, the question is it going to come out that she can't have kids, or is it going to come out that she was a prostitute, because we saw that just someone she ran into on the street
in
recognized
the
her.
hospital,
So it could go afoul in a variety
Yeah,
of
there's a lot of
different
things
ways.
that could go wrong
All
there.
they really have to do is say, look, we tried and unfortunately tragedy struck and she's barren.
Yes.
That's all they really have to do.
Her insides are a rocky place where your seed can take no purchase, as they say in Raising Arizona. No, I love Betty, and I kind of squirm over where's this going to go, because she's landed this guy and she's got the life that she really wanted, and at some point,
Or at least the life she thinks she wanted, because of course the life she may wanted is with that Helen character.
This is true. I forgot about that.
yeah.
But nonetheless, I just feel like this is not going to end well with all of these sort of secrets and lies and whatnot going on.
I did like that Jenny was finally, I don't know if she needed to be taken to task, but like there were repercussions for her taking Ethan right after he was engaged to someone. You know, like people like, I'm not saying that I think she deserves to be punished for it or anything like that, but it was nice to see that not just go without notice. You know,
Right.
it's like, you know, that was kind of messed up.
And like she's taking all this hideous, unjust criticism of nurses literally moving to the other side of the hall as she passes.
not holding the elevator door
Or
for her.
just not holding the elevator door. Secretaries aren't talking to her. Nurses aren't talking. Doctors are leering at it. It's all horrible. But here is the daughter. What's her name?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Says to her, but like that's legit.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
there's
That's a-
legit anger toward her, and
Definitely.
she feels it because then she has no interest in engaging in getting rid of Betsy Brandt as Masters'
Is
new
that Betsy
secretary.
Brandt?
That's Betsy Brandt.
Yeah.
Get out! I
Yeah.
did not
Yeah.
recognize her.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Good
For her.
I don't even think we talked about this last episode, but we didn't talk about Jenny's new boss, played by
Julianne Nicholson.
Julianne
Right,
Nicholson, who's great.
She's awesome. Yeah.
on the show, and she's got such a great sad story arc. And the scene where she's trying to film a how-to pap smear video and gets aphasia.
Yeah.
That's like one of my great terrors, is to just all of a sudden turn a popsicle kaleidoscope.
Right.
You know, just like that is just the tragedy of her character. And I'm just like, there's no way this is going to end happily. Like, I was just like watching like this slow
and
motion.
just the whole weirdness about, I mean, all the things that the 50s were weird about women's health, and that, you know, that trying to talk about this stuff that nobody wants to hear it, that even other women were skittish about, ew, a female gynecologist,
I don't trust that.
Yeah, whereas nowadays,
what do they
it's
know about women's bodies?
Now it's totally the opposite, and so you have to figure for this really intelligent woman who is herself a cancer victim and not just hitting all the walls that a woman in her position would have in that era of American medicine. It's just, you really feel for that character.
And that's so much of this show is just looking back on it and going, oh, I'm so glad we don't do that now, except we kind of do, but it's not as blunt.
Pronounced.
And but it wasn't 1857. It's 1957.
Right, exactly,
So that's
yeah.
remarkable to some
like
extent.
my father was practicing medicine in
I liked
1957.
what she said to Virginia, like about like that it's never enough. Just because there's a truism that applies now, that like whatever you're doing, like you're never satisfied that the thing you're doing is good. When she's
Right.
like, I just wanted to print flyers. Like I had a goal. I had a good goal. I want people to get more pap smears. I don't need to be a freaking TV star.
Right.
And some of that was true, and you pushed it and you pushed it. And Jenny's like, you don't know who I am. Stop. But I like that scene.
But it does kind of follow up with that great moment that they have at the country club with all of the gynecologist wives when they get there too late to speak at that conference, and they're sort of they're kind of talking to the power behind the throne. It's like I like the idea that they're then going the next step, which is not just the pamphlets, but something more direct. And I don't know. I like how they're really pursuing that in a way that society did not want them to.
Do you watch Boardwalk Empire or no?
No, I don't yet.
Because Julianne Nicholson's in Boardwalk Empire. She doesn't have a huge role, but it's a recurring role, and when she's on, it's important. And she plays very uptight 1920s, precise, dogged, good district attorney. And I just imagine that there's no way that she had to audition for this. Like these guys saw that and they're like, no, call her, have her do her hair the same way. This time she's a doctor, she can do this. And she's great. And that last line that she has in this episode, about wanting to get pizza. I don't eat pizza, I've never liked pizza, but all of a sudden I want pizza. And then Lizzie Kaplan thinks she's having another
major moment.
that was a cute
You just
bit.
said pizza. What did you actually?
That was a really
yeah.
cute bit.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the new nanny? What is that representing?
That represents Ann Dowd left the show and they needed to get someone else for the wife to talk to.
Did she leave the show? She shot.
I don't know. It seemed like last episode was so much about getting people off the show as fast as possible.
He does send her out of town, but I don't know that we've heard the last one.
I hope we haven't heard the last one because I like that character.
Well,
there was so much unexplored.
I mean, she's amazing on The Leftovers,
Yeah.
but as somebody, I think it was Louis Peitzman from BuzzFeed tweeted this weekend, more Ann Dowd is my note for every TV show.
Yeah,
you know?
But back to the subject of the new nanny, I feel like one of the social precepts, one of the social issues that they've touched upon but really haven't done much of yet is civil rights. Is the different, and that's something where I just think people think there's a separate hospital for black people. Is that going to affect the study? Are we going to bring people in for that?
They touched on that a little. Remember, there was the episode in the first episode, in the first season when she miscarries and she gets taken to the black hospital.
Yeah,
it's there in the background. I suspect it's a card they'll play when they're ready to, and it's relevant. But I just think the idea of Libby has put so much investment into this baby as being the saving grace of her marriage.
Which of course it will be.
Right.
Yeah.
It always is.
Because we know how history works.
Yeah.
But no, and so then on top of it, for her to feel like not only is the baby not transforming Bill the way that she thought it would, but that she's not even that good a mother, or at least as good a mother as she thought she was going to be. That this teenage girl's coming in and sort of showing her up,
swaddling a proper.
When Bill says, "Well, I guess she's competent," and it's just like, "Ooh, burn."
Oh, I didn't even read it that way, but but you're right.
No, it was messed. Like there was this close up of her face where she was just like, "I thought I was competent." No.
Yeah, no. Good point.
That was harsh. That was harsh.
And then of course that scene where like my wife couldn't even watch the scene as soon as she said, "It's ask." As soon as that.
You want race.
Then you were like, Jesus.
I immediately thought of that great scene in The Company of Men where Aaron Eckhart just goes out of his way to humiliate one of his guys, and he says the same line. It's pronounced ask. And it's just like, wow, you're a terrible person right now. Like, kind of. But no, that's just a terrible thing. You don't correct everyone on their accent.
That was cringy. Alton, Illinois is going to become an issue because Austin's wife,
Alton, Illinois is where the hotel is that they go to?
That's the hotel where they've been banging, and Austin's wife went to go with her sister, and he says, in Alton, Illinois.
So they're going to get seen there.
So they're going to get spotted there by the wronged wife, because you don't mention Alton, Illinois twice in conversation.
Good catch. Great catch.
They make such a big deal out of their alias, like Mr. and Mrs. Holden, or Dr. and Mrs. Holden, or whatever, that I keep thinking that's a reference to something.
Right.
Right, and at first I remember I was just checking, I was like, are they just pretending to be William Holden, or like what? Like no,
Holden
different first
Caulfield,
name,
right? Like what's happening?
And I think they got to be pointing that much attention to it, because at some point that's going to be their alibi, and then maybe that's what it's going to be. Like the name is going to be an important plot point.
That's true. You're right. Another thing that's
that
mentioned,
wasn't us. That was the Holdens.
It's mentioned several times. So you know it's going to matter later.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's I just looked down at my notes here and it says big vampiric moment, but I'm pretty sure that's the strain.
I'm hoping so.
Yeah. Anyway, as of course it's good episodes, quality show.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Good times.
Thanks.